It's the Unhappy Hour.
Broadcasting to you live from the Milky Way galaxy, the solar system, planet Earth. Yes, I'm giving these coordinates so you can come find us. Whatever. Los Angeles, California, everybody, hello and welcome to Friday, happy weekend, happy summer, what are we happy about? Oh, I don't know, happy the Indians are at least 500 and in the middle of the conversation of the playoff world in Major League Baseball. I'd say that's a good thing. Yes, the Indians made the playoffs last year, but it was like that pseudo-playoffs thing where you got like that one game, half wild card, not even a series. It's just, here's one game. Really disappointing, that whole situation. Not a big fan of the one-game playoff, but we're going to bring in Rob Trautman from Sports on Tap podcast to talk some Cleveland Indians baseball. But I want to make sure that you've checked out our homepage, thenewamericanmedia.com. A hilarious featured video on the top right of the page. Not even going to tell you what it is. Check it out, as well as all of our archived content from the past 3 years. Also, as far as archived, youtube.com/thenewamericanmedia. Click subscribe. So much good information, so many good interviews on there. Take a look. Twitter, we're at American_media_. And on Facebook, do a search for The New American Media and like the page. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and reach out to Rob Trautman from Sports on Tap. Love this part when it rings and rings.
Brian Engelman, how you doing today?
I'm living the dream, Rob Trautman. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. It's glad to hear that you're still living that dream.
Absolutely.
Nothing's changed.
No, the more some things change, the more they stay the same. And what? Where were the Indians this time last year, Rob? Weren't they in a similar spot? I'm trying to remember because some of the seasons start to blur together for me. But here the Indians are this year, right around 500, right in the thick of the wild card race. A few games back, but we've shown a propensity to beat the Tigers. Do you remember where the Tribe was the last couple years around the mid season point? Is this staying the same as it always was?
Yeah, I think it's pretty similar to last year. Last year I thought they had maybe a few more runs, we'll say like winning streaks, a longer winning streaks, I'd say, last year. But, this year they're still in the thick of things. Got to get those wins, though, in extra innings. And they've had, in the last few weeks, whether it's Minnesota or Kansas City's really had the Indians' number so far this year. I mean, they're a tough team, good young team with some clutch hitting, good defense. Their pitching, though, is outstanding. Their starting pitching gets them deep into games, and their bullpen is pretty impressive. But it seems like that's been tough for them. It's just they got to start winning those close games. And, last night goes into the 14th, and, they were unable to get a win.
Well, and that was a perfect game through 6.
Yeah, Corey Kluber, I mean, they wasted a great start, and Corey Kluber's really started to come on even more. I mean, he's had a great year pitching-wise. I mean, his record isn't bad, but, I mean, it could be a lot better. His ERA, I think, is still under 3, and just having a great year. Gave him he went deep into the game last night, but again, the bullpen wasn't bad either, but just really unlucky. They started off the 14th with a squib hit. Jose Ramirez runs in, tries to make it's a tough play, it's a do or die play, and couldn't get it done.
Well, the best way the most common way to get unlucky. I don't know. How about not score runs for 13 innings? Bad things always happen when you're not scoring runs. And, they got unlucky. Well, no crap. They can't put anyone across the plate. And this team, it's one thing or another. It's either the pitching or the hitting. But maybe that's what happens. You end up with a 500 team because you can't put it all together. But one area is not going to allow you to suck too much because this team does have the ability to score runs, just not consistently.
Well, and that's it, and that's a funny point, I will say, and a good point that, they got to be able to score runs. And, whether it's coming off the bat, Nick Swisher and Carlos Santana have still struggled this year. But, lately, Swishers has had a 3-hit game. Santana the other night had a 3-hit game. And, let's give credit to Chris Dickerson, who's really stepped in nicely. He was a guy that came from Baltimore and is a veteran player that's kind of moved around, kind of like Steve Atchison in the bullpen. He's been just all over the place. He's 38 years old. They've traveled all over the place and have found a nice amount of playing time with the Cleveland Indians and have been doing very well. But, offensively, though, they need guys to step up more. Michael Brantley's consistently good hitting-wise, but, there's really in the lineup, even Jan Gomes has come around. He's batting above 270, but you need more hitters consistently hitting above 260. And, even Jason Kipnis, he went on a streak where he was really struggling hitting the ball. But when you have, you thought Nick Swisher and Carlos Santana were going to be your two guys in the middle of that lineup producing runs and being your big hitters, and they're batting 208 and 206, I'm even shocked so far that, they have found ways to win and are still in the race, really.
Yeah, it's still a very competitive situation over in the American League for that wild card. And I led off with the show just talking about how absurd that wild card thing was, where you got one game against the Rays last year. I'm sorry, I'm not a fan of it. I want to see a series. I don't want a one and done. Let's see how they match up. But if you look at it, yeah, the Tribe sitting there 7.5 games back from Detroit. But if you're looking at the wild card standings, Indians are right there at 500, only 2.5 games back. That is not insurmountable by any stretch of the imagination. The Angels have that first spot pretty well locked up, about 7 games better than the Yankees. But here we are right in the thick of it. So, we're coming up on this trade deadline. What in the world is the Tribe going to do? If Masterson wouldn't sign his deal, is he on the block? Asdrubal Cabrera, is he on the block? Is Antonetti going to pull the trigger and get anything done? Or, are we just going to coast it out and say that we already spent our money on Michael Bourne? We'll figure it out. Are we doing anything?
Well, I think, the San Francisco Giants were interested in Mike Aviles, who's one of those utility guys, and I don't think I would trade him. He's a guy that when a guy gets injured, he's playing outfield, he's playing infield, he's playing all over the place. He was a rumored trade on the trade block for the Giants, or the Giants were interested in him and Asdrubal Cabrera. Asdrubal Cabrera, with Lindor, he was actually just brought up to AAA not too long ago. I think you can put Aviles at shortstop and, maybe get some kind of value for Asdrubal, who started hitting a little bit better. I think he's batting 250, which still is not, the greatest batting average. But I think you can still get some value for him, whether it's, some bullpen help or I think, the Indians obviously need to start. Masterson has struggled. You look at Danny Salazar, he's been down at AAA for the most part. Zach McAllister's still trying to figure it out. So really it's, Corey Kluber has been, the guy that's been the pretty much bread and butter pitching. He's been solid. TJ House has done a nice job coming in and pitching for the Indians, another young guy. But, they need a starting pitcher, I think, in there. It's too bad they still didn't have Scott Kazmir, because he was an all-star this year pitching for Oakland. But, I think he wanted a little too much money. And, look at Ubaldo Jimenez. That's another guy the Indians had last year, and he's not doing very well this year in Baltimore. But I would say a starting pitcher, a bullpen guy wouldn't hurt. And, I keep saying, and I said it last year, they still need that guy in the middle of the lineup that can hit home runs. He needs to have at least a decent average. But, where are those guys? You need a guy that can, clean up. Like the Tigers did. And look at the Tigers even this year. They're not the same team they once were. Their bullpen is terrible. And, even in the middle of the lineup, they don't have Prince Fielder anymore. And I think, with Victor and Miguel Cabrera, they're solid in the middle of that lineup. But with Prince Fielder, that's a tough lineup to deal with. And the Indians, they just don't have that. So I think you still need that big bat. We'll see what they do. I'd like them to go after David Price, but, they're going to have to give up, Word was that they, were offering Salazar, Carlos Santana, and probably a top prospect. And that's a decent amount to give up, but in all honesty, for a guy like David Price, maybe that's what the Indians need to maybe get more attendance in there, but to have a quality starter, and they would have him next year as well, but then he would be a free agent. So it's kind of a tough situation for the Indians, and we'll see how it plays out.
Well, I mean, luckily the Tribe has been playing the Tigers really well this year. Quick comments on that, because what you were leading into is, who do we trade, who do we give up? I want to bounce over to the Wiggins, Kevin Love debate real quick, because we only have you for a few more minutes. But why do you think the Indians have been having such success against the Tigers? Because it's fantastic to see, because a couple of years ago, I remember we were getting swept by the Tigers every time we tried to make a run. But this year, we're battling the number one team, but then, we're losing series to Minnesota, and, why are we playing so much better against the Tigers?
Well, I think, they're a younger lineup now. I mean, they have a lot of young guys in that lineup, but it starts with starting pitching. I mean, look at Max Scherzer last year. I mean, I think he had 23 or plus 20 wins. I know that last year was unbelievable. I mean, that's tough to do a second year in a row. And Verlander is kind of struggled. So if their starting pitching has to goes 5 innings and then has to give it up to that bullpen, Albuquerque in their bullpen has really struggled, and Phil Koch has not been very good. Their whole bullpen really, they've tried a lot of different things and it hasn't worked out. And they actually just got Joaquin Soria from I can't remember what team it was. I think it might have been the Rangers for some prospects. So that was a nice pickup for them. But is that really going to solve your whole entire bullpen issues? I don't think so. But the Indians have really hit them well. I think they figured out, where Verlander and Scherzer and all those guys are doing. They kind of get into a rhythm and they line you up a certain way. And the Indians hitters have done a great job just getting to their bullpen, because once you get to that bullpen, it's pretty much up in the air. And their lineup, top to bottom, isn't as strong. I mean, they still have a lot of talent in that lineup. There's no doubt about that. Cabrera is still the best hitter. Victor is very solid. And they actually had a few other young guys step up and do a lot of great things so far this year. But, you don't have the Prince Fielder in that lineup. You do have Ian Kinsler, who has had a good year. But top to bottom, I don't think they're as strong. So that kind of puts them down a little bit. And remember last year, I mean, the Indians won 10 games in a row to finish off the season. They lost to the Tigers by 1 game. And I know, the Tigers knew they won, so they were playing their bench players a little bit. But, I just don't think up and down they're as strong as they were last year.
Well, the Cavs are obviously going to be stronger than they were last year. They got a pretty big free agent signing. What's his name? Some guy from.
I think he went to high school in Ohio here somewhere, in Akron or something.
Wait, I thought.
The word
Isn't that Dante Whitner that came? Or no, that's the Browns. Who we talk? Yeah. Anyway, no. Obviously, the Cavs, the big winners in free agency, getting the best player on the planet to want to come back and play. But now all the talk is, would you trade would you trade Andrew Wiggins, the number 1 pick this year, in a year where there was an actual number 1 pick, maybe not a LeBron James or Shaquille O'Neal kind of number 1 pick, but a legitimate number 1 pick, as opposed to last year with Anthony Bennett, not a very strong, deep draft. But that's the question. Switching topics here. We'll see what the Tribe does at the trade deadline. But switching topics, you're the Cavs GM. LeBron James is 11 years into the league. He says in his letter that he knows it's going to be a longer process, which to me means we're coming up with Wiggins, and it's going to have that 10-year difference as you have a mentor and a young kid that's going to bloom and blossom underneath. But then everything behind the scenes, it seems like LeBron's calling the shots, and he says he wants Kevin Love, which is a horrible negotiating tactic when you're moving all in for one player and the other team's like, oh, you want him? Then throw in some more picks. They're really not handling it right, in my opinion. I want to get yours. What would you do? Cavs GM for a day. Rob Trautman.
Yeah. I've been flip-flopping on this. I mean, I felt like the Cavs should hold on to Wiggins, and if they can barter with other things, I would push it in a different way, because Wiggins does look impressive. I mean, it is summer league ball, and same with Anthony Bennett, but I would try to push, some different players and just see, if there's any interest in, say, Deion Waiters is a solid player, but I don't know if they're going to even, come close to thinking about giving him up. But, whether it's Wiggins and picks, I mean, if you think about it, I would try to push picks more. Because look at this Cavaliers team. Do you actually think they're going to be a top 10 in the draft now?
Well, but that's the deal. Trust me, Minnesota knows that too. So
Yeah.
so that pick isn't as valuable.
yeah.
But the picks we have from the Memphis Grizzlies, the pick that we have from Miami, now those could be different. That could absolutely be something different, assets to include.
Yeah, and that's I think what I would try doing. I think it's kind of a tough thing because like you say, LeBron's in his prime now, and I mean, how many more good years does he have? I think he has a lot of good years ahead of him, but I know maybe 4 more unbelievable years. Of him playing at a very high level. Who knows how? I don't know. It's tough to say how much longer he can play at this level. But if you want to win now, I guess Kevin Love is only 26 years old, I believe, so he's still a pretty young guy in the league, and he's playing at a high level and has for a long time. And I don't know how involved LeBron is. I mean, it sounds like like you said from his letter. I mean, and I read the same thing into it. This is going to be a long process. So all of a sudden, why would he say, well, let's skip that long process and go get Kevin Love? I think if you have an opportunity to get a player like that, I mean, I don't know if the Cavs would ever have a chance to get a player like that again, just because LeBron has been here before and he tried to recruit players and it didn't work. Getting them to come here. Now all of a sudden Mike Miller's coming here. Ray Allen might possibly come here. It's either the Cavs or retirement, word is, and he still hasn't made a decision yet. But getting James Jones, who knows how great of a move that is, but he's a guy that can shoot 3-pointers at 46% isn't too bad off the bench. So, I mean, the Cavs are getting some veteran players to mix in with the young players because they still do have a young team with Waiters, Irving, Tristan Thompson, Joe Harris they drafted. I mean, they still have a very young team to mix them in with veterans. I think that's a very nice combination. Then you get Kevin Love. I mean, who's going to stop offensively? Are you going to cover Kevin Love, LeBron James, or Kyrie Irving? I mean, that's a really tough lineup to stop.
I know. I just in my mind, I'm playing that video game with Kevin Love, LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, and then you kick it out to Wiggins, or Wiggins cutting along baseline, alley-oop, Like, I'm already seeing that in my head. And I don't think that the trade market is as strong for Kevin Love as the Timberwolves hope it is or need it to be. They know what they could get from the Warriors. The Bulls are jumping in, trying to throw some stuff. But I don't know why Kevin Love isn't putting some information out there, leaking a few things to the press that, I'm only going to sign with Cleveland. You're just renting me for a year. I'm probably I'm likely to just re-sign with Cleveland or find a way to do that. Why the Cavs GM isn't looking at every other, not Kevin Love, but all the other good names that are going to be coming up, that are going to be available next year, and say, we're moving past the Kevin Love thing. They want our entire franchise, and we're not giving it away. So we're going to look at this player, that player, and start putting the pressure back on the Timberwolves. It's a poker game, and I just don't know who's playing poker in the Cavs' house. I mean, am I wrong to say that? I'm getting frustrated that they're not playing poker in this. They seem very desperate.
Well, and who knows if the Cavs are saying now we'll deal Wiggins, because it seems like the media speculates a lot, as we saw in the LeBron James, where on our Sports on Tap podcast, we talked about how the media
give your full plug.
LeBron James.
Give me your full plug on the Sports on Tap. Let's do that.
Okay, it's at SOT Podcast. You can go to our iTunes. We're Sports on Tap. You can look us up on Podomatic, iTunes, and find us that way and listen to all of our podcasts there. But like
you're saying, the media took over.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. But like I said, when we talked about the media, ESPN, I mean, they speculated a lot. They were so far off base with their reporting, and Chris Sheridan was a guy that was dead on for weeks. I mean, he was dead on on his reporting, and giving him all the credit. ESPN was pretty off, I thought. I was pretty disappointed with and it is tough because everybody has different sources. But if you're not sure, or you're just trying to take a guess and a stab in the dark, I mean, that letter was a huge issue. that day. I remember, LeBron's not over that letter. He's not going to. Dan Gilbert's a tough guy to play for. Why would he want to go there? And then all of a sudden, LeBron's going home. So I think it's interesting that way. But so who knows exactly what's going on? I don't think the Cavs are necessarily leaking anything. And like you said, I don't know. I don't think there are a lot of teams that want Kevin Love. I think the Timberwolves are trying to leak things out there, like the Chicago Bulls. They just signed Paul Gasol. They released Carlos Boozer. If they get Kevin Love, are they going to trade Paul Gasol, who they just signed? I mean, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Then you have Kevin Love, you have Paul Gasol, you have Noah. I mean, to me, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, they have some assets there I guess they can trade, but it didn't make a lot of sense to me.
I was curious. I was curious looking at Carlos Boozer going for like $3 million. That's kind of cheap for a car. I mean, yes, he's been broken down. I mean, but a player like that, you almost roll the dice on, and you obviously think, LeBron, witness, quitness, forgiveness. And if Carlos Boozer didn't do what he did to the Cavs back in the day, who knows what that Cavs team would have done with LeBron and Carlos Boozer when he was a healthy double-double machine. But, I mean, for $3.5 million, I was just looking at Boozer going, man, I don't know. As long as we're forgiving LeBron James, hey, wheel Art Modell back out. Let's just forgive everybody and put him on the squad. I bet you Art Modell could just sit in the wing.
That would be interesting. That would be an interesting scenario to bring him back after what he did to the Cavs, too. Like you said, I mean, if we're in a forgiving mood, he's not I think he averaged 14 points a game and maybe 8 rebounds, which is not bad. That would not be a bad fit. There were some rumors that, the Cavaliers might take a look, but they just think, that's old news, which isn't. I don't think it's a bad signing, to be honest, like you. But, is everybody going to forgive him? I mean, he did one of those things. I'm going to sign with Cleveland, then bolted too. But it happens. I mean, that's the nature of the business in the NBA, and I think there are a lot of options out there. But a player like Kevin Love, I mean, 26 and 12 a game, that's tough to pass up if you can get a good deal. And I think, in all honesty, I think that's why maybe the Cavs haven't necessarily made a deal yet. I mean, they could have made a deal a long time ago with this, but I think they're kind of seeing. Maybe the market just go down a little bit. Maybe they're not ready to deal Wiggins. They said, now the Cavs have to wait 30 days to trade Wiggins. So maybe they sign him because they're like, let's think this over for 30 days and see if we can get them off of Wiggins and onto somebody else. I mean, who knows what's going on behind the scenes. But that might be a possibility. We'll wait and see. Once the 30 days hits, we'll see as it gets closer if there's already a deal in place or they're still trying to figure it out.
I am getting a text message as we're talking. We might have some Kevin Love trade news very, 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 very soon. I wish I could elaborate on that. But anyway, we'll have to get back to that, but I'm calling it right now. Something seems a little interesting. And I have a couple sources that if you go back in our archives at the New American Media, you'll find from 9 months ago we had LeBron James returning to Cleveland from the sources that we had at the time. And halfway through this year, the Cavs damn near did everything possible to try to screw that up with the horrible season they had. Lucky bounce of a ping pong ball.
Way, is your sources saying that Kevin Love could be a Cavalier, or is he going elsewhere?
Wow. Let me just say, I have been a fan of Andrew Wiggins. I think the athleticism and defensive skill he's going to bring to the table right away is something Kevin Love is not known for, and it can give LeBron James a little bit more of a break on the defensive end. Maybe we're going to see a little bit more of that. Maybe we're going to actually get to see that.
Wow.
Don't know yet. I'm speaking very vaguely.
I'll just say this. If they get Kevin Love and hold on to Andrew Wiggins, that's unbelievable in my book.
I would say that's probably not what I'm thinking.
Oh, okay, so maybe he's going elsewhere.
That's
which. Do you know what? I wouldn't necessarily be. Let's say a lot of people might be upset. I don't know if I'd necessarily be upset, especially with Anthony Bennett. To me, is kind of like a Kevin Love player. He's one of those stretch fours, and in summer league he shed 15 pounds and look a lot quicker, more athletic, and I think he can be a pretty interesting player to watch out for. So, I mean, if it doesn't happen, let's just tell the Cleveland fans now that, I mean, Kevin Love is an amazing player, but, you know, holding on to Andrew Wiggins and Anthony Bennett might not be a terrible scenario for the Cavaliers.
Yeah, Anthony Bennett coming out with his sleep apnea surgery that he had, with his shoulder surgery that he had, you know, coming into Camp Fat, you know, that certainly didn't help. You know, just all the draft picks, you know, it just, the thing that worried me about this Kevin Love trade was that, you know, we're moving all our chips in the middle in year one with LeBron. Are we trying to build a long-term successful thing here? Because it's like that's kind of what the Cavs did last time. You jumped out, you got a couple of huge contracts, and you were just so stuck. It's hard to argue with the Heat having 3 max superstars going to 4 straight championship, 4 straight Eastern Conference. What am I saying? 4 straight NBA Finals and winning 2 of them. So I know the formula works, but I think the Cavs even have a potential to do even more than just wager it all, risk it all, and then it's like, man, then your cabinet's empty and you wasted everything already, and you're like, oh crap, here goes LeBron having to bolt the second time because we didn't build this sustainably.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I mean, let's put it this way: I know the Cavaliers fans might be a little disappointed, but you know, they're saying, you know, the Cavs will make the finals with Kevin Love, and that could possibly happen. I mean, they're going to make it in the playoffs, and they'll probably make it decently far. But even with the team they have now with Bennett and Wiggins, you know, they're holding on to the draft picks. They can still get another. They're going to have to get another center. You know, whether he's a defensive center or you know, a tall power forward. They still need another guy just in case Varejao breaks down, which has happened. But this team is not a bad team, and they are going to make the playoffs this coming up year. And now how far, we don't know. But I still think, you know, with these young players and with the veterans on the team, say they sign Ray Allen, there's another veteran that can really take these guys under their wing and teach them how to win in the playoffs. And I think that's going to teach these guys long-term success and success right now. I mean, there's no saying that they couldn't make the finals right now. Yeah, they're a young team, but who knows? Maybe they'll learn a lot quicker than we think. So,
yeah,
you know, just wait and see what happens. And either way, this Cavs team is obviously a heck of a lot better than it was last year with the veterans they picked up in LeBron James coming home.
Absolutely. A couple quick questions on your way out the door, real fast, lightning round. Did you hear about that guy dying at the Jacobs Field, or I'm sorry, the Progressive Field, at that Jason Aldean concert? What do you make of that thing? Falling down a garbage chute 5 floors, maybe? Found in a dumpster?
Yeah, you know, and I don't know all the details, but that's just, you know, that's sad. And you know how country concerts go, you know, beforehand when a lot of drinking happens and stuff.
I don't know if I do know how they go. I haven't been to too many. I know how rock and roll shows go, and yeah.
Well, yeah, it's probably, I mean, I wouldn't say that obviously the music's similar, but I'm sure partying could be somewhat similar. But, yeah, that's a tough situation. You know, the only thing I said was, you know, he wandered off. I think he's going to sit with other friends or whatever, and his friend said he was ridiculously intoxicated. And if that was the case, you know, I'm a little bit surprised that they would let him wander by himself. I mean, it's tough to say now because it already happened, but I guess I was always that guy that, you know, if one of my friends was just falling over and, you know, not looking too good, I probably wouldn't, you know, I would foul them or make sure they got to where they need to be because, you know, you never know what happens when you drink a little bit too much.
They said this guy might have, the lines were crazy, got wrapping around, you know, taking forever to go to the bathroom, and that maybe this guy went, I don't know, like a trash chute, whether to pee, but they said it was up off the. We still haven't seen pictures of it, but maybe went to vomit, and who knows? And then the theory is that he fell down into a dumpster, maybe broke his neck, or, you know, knocked himself unconscious and was crushed by the compactor of a trash truck and dumped in a landfill. Really insane story over at the Tribe ballpark, but I don't know, just want to bounce that off you. The Cleveland Browns seem to be really concerned about Johnny Manziel. Hearing some more stories that they're alarmed with some of the off-the-field activity. What do you make of Manziel's antics?
Well, I think he does need to maybe calm down a little bit. Training camp, you know, starts tomorrow, so we haven't seen too many pictures or heard much on Johnny Manziel now. I think he has taken it maybe seriously now and gotten all his fun times out, hopefully. And, I mean, if we still see him out partying and doing crazy things during the season, then we have some serious issues. But, you know, it was before training camp. I think he does need to calm that down a little bit. I mean, we'll see how he does. I mean, if he still performs at a high level and can start for them, then, you know, that's obviously a huge thing for him, and it will probably be forgotten. But, you know, he's got to maybe go under the radar a little bit. Instead, you know, all these pictures keep coming up, and so he's got to be careful with that because you never know what can happen nowadays with all the social media outlets that can post that. So we'll see what happens. The training camp starts tomorrow, and obviously Brian Hoyer is the starting quarterback. We'll see what Johnny Manziel can do behind him.
Hoyer the Destroyer, by the way. Make sure you get that one right. Let's start spreading that around. Hoyer the Destroyer. You know, and Mike Pettin, the Browns coach, he was out there. He was saying that Johnny Manziel isn't really competing against Brian Hoyer. He's competing against the playbook right now. You know, he's not absorbing all this stuff. Now, NFL playbooks are very complex, and it takes a little bit of time anyway. I totally get that. And the preparation level you need moving from college to the pros is different. I totally follow that. But I think that was you're getting a little bit of insight from what Mike Pettin is saying, Johnny, you got to get to work, bro. Like, you're way behind. You don't have your material in front of you. Now, final question. Seriously, the Cleveland Browns this year, we're looking at maybe losing Josh Gordon for the whole season, especially after that newest DUI. I mean, give me a break. It's so disappointing. Justin Blackmon, same thing. Wide receiver, talented wide receiver, just out of the league, can't stay out of trouble. But what do you make of Ray Rice knocking out his girlfriend and getting a 2-game suspension? And, you know, Josh Gordon might be lost for smoking some weed. My buddy Greg on Twitter, he's at Greg Time. And he says, yeah, it's okay to hit your woman, just don't hit that joint. Hashtag NFL.
You know, that it is really ridiculous. I mean, let's be honest. I know it happened off the field, but obviously so did the other you know, guys, whether they're smoking the joints and getting caught, you know, with the drug testing. But Ray Rice, 2 games for, you know, what video showed was just kind of insane. And, you know, John Harbaugh said, oh, you know, we're trying to teach kids. I mean, a 2-game suspension is a little slap on the wrist, if you ask me. And, you know, he's allowed in preseason games. I don't think he's even losing any money involved. But, you know, to do that, and, you know, Ray Rice seems like a really good guy. But, I mean, that's a crucial mistake. I mean, and he's a role model. I mean, you can't be doing that kind of stuff. And I think the NFL needs a way harsher punishment. I mean, that is insane. Josh Gordon, I mean, he's made several mistakes, and you know, he did enter rehab to try to hopefully correct some of his issues. But Ray Rice getting a 2-game suspension for that, you know, his wife, I don't believe, pressed charges, but
yeah, because that's the first time a victim of domestic violence has never not pressed charges against a guy that just effed her up. Oh yeah. So I'm sure everything's cool, right?
And I'm sure there's a million reasons why she didn't press charges.
How about let's get married with no prenup, baby, and I won't press charges.
Exactly. But yeah, to me it was just unbelievable. Roger Goodell really needs to take a step back and kind of I would say review some things, because I mean that was pretty weak. And you know, I know John Harbaugh even said some iffy things in his interview when asked about it, and he said, you know, the punishment reflects him making a mistake, and you know, he's a good guy and this and that. And yeah, he is, but when you make a mistake like that, you know, he should have been suspended way long. I mean, I would have at the very least give him half the season.
Yeah.
Just to teach him a lesson. You know, you're still under the NFL, whether you're off the field or on it. I mean, when you're off the field, you're still a role model and you're in the spotlight because you're playing in the NFL. And that gives the NFL a pretty bad name, really, if you ask me.
Yeah,
so I would have gave him a harsher punishment.
Yeah, I mean, what did Joe Hayden? He was lost for, was it 4 games for an Adderall?
Yeah, I mean,
Adderall doesn't give you muscles or help you run or learn I don't know. 4 games for Adderall, 2 for that.
Who knows what they're thinking, but it's crazy.
I don't think they're thinking very much, but yeah, we'll see how it all plays out. By the way, let me retract and rephrase my my Kevin Love information. I think we may get used to seeing him by the shores of Lake Erie. Let me totally go backwards and do the flip flop. I think, yeah.
Did you read? You must have read it wrong then.
You go with ambiguous, and then you follow up with a follow-up, and then the ambiguous that you took one way is actually the other way. So I'm going to clarify that, but I'll tell you what. 9 months ago, I did a show saying LeBron is coming back to Cleveland, and up until pretty much the last 3, 4, 5 weeks when everything was going down, I stayed at 95% certain that he was coming back based on the information I was getting. There was always that one wild card in the deck, but other than that one wild card, I stuck with 95% certain, and that's based on information. You hear bits and pieces, and you can't you don't say what you know, but I was fairly certain of that. But I just kind of think we're gonna win in this Kevin Love deal anyway. Who cares? So what? We ping pong ball. We got Andrew Wiggins.
Either way you look at it, whether they get him or they don't, they're gonna be winners. I mean, period.
1 year later, you have LeBron James and Kevin Love. Well, why am I crying about Andrew Wiggins, man? Let's just play ball. This is going to be great. Either way, I think it's going to be great. So
either way, it's a win-win if you ask me.
Exactly.
But to soften the punch, if we don't get Kevin Love, we still have a very good team, and they're going to make the playoffs and be a lot better. So
absolutely.
Either way, it's a win-win with Kevin Love. Look out. Without him, this team still could be pretty dangerous.
And Rob, tell everybody where they can follow you, where they can check out Sports on Tap, and what you're all up to.
Yeah, we're at SOT Podcast on Twitter, and we're also on Facebook, facebook.com/SOT Podcast. And we talk Cleveland sports, local sports, national sports. We'll even cover some topics off sports if you want to talk about it. So it's a lot of fun. Check us out. iTunes and Podomatic. You can listen to all of our podcasts. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at rtrauty, RTRAUTY.
Excellent. Well, Rob, thank you very much for your time. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll be talking again soon. All right, brother?
Sounds good, Brian. You too, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Hey, sure thing. Anytime. There goes Rob Trautman. Make sure you lock into what he's up to on Twitter and on his pages. Make sure that you're following what he's up to because, yeah, he definitely knows his stuff, and all of us Cleveland sports fans need to stick together in these trying times. Waiting for our first championship in 50 years, 50 years. Yeah, looking a lot better. Looking a lot better with the Browns. I'm telling you, the Browns are going to be a vastly improved team this year. Watch out for the Browns. Playoffs. Watch them. Watch them. It's going to happen. The Indians, they're one nice streak away from holding a playoff spot of their own, which I'm very much looking forward to. And the Cavaliers, I mean, geez, get the best player on the planet, your odds have got to improve for a title there. So we're going to take a break, probably wrap it up for this episode of the Unhappy Hour. Thank you very much for listening. Coming up soon, I'm trying to figure out what time we're going to go live. I'm trying to coordinate multiple schedules, but we're going to actually have a debate, a roundtable discussion on Israel and Palestine, on the Gaza Strip. My whole life, these people have been fighting, and I'm so sick of it. How many times do you have to flick the lights in the room before the kids stop fighting, before you just smack both of them? All right, you go over there and you go over there. Now sit down. Stop it. I don't have kids, but I do have cats. And my cats will fight each other, and sometimes they get a little aggressive, and then you got to actually calm down and get in the middle of it. Maybe you get scratched up, and you're like, son of... But really, enough. Enough is enough. Everybody has grievances. Everyone's always going to have grievances. But how can we just stop this? So, I mean, who are you supposed to support in this? Israel, Palestine, nobody, everybody. I don't know, but we're going to bring in a biblical scholar and pastor to the program. He also happens to be my uncle, Bruce Engelman. So he's going to be there along with a co-host for a lot of our radio shows that we do over here at the New American Media called Agree to Disagree. Blake the Eccentric Wally is going to be taking the Palestinian side. And we're going to have a debate. I'm going to kind of moderate it and try to talk as little as possible. Good luck with that. That's the thing when you're your own producer, your own director, your stage manager. When you're the one in charge of how you're handling your format, you don't really get the show notes of, hey, why don't you Try this. Don't talk. Why don't you don't not talk as much during this debate? I'm just going to do it however it feels right. But we're going to break it down because I really don't know all of the nuances. I've talked with Bruce several times, and he really brings that historical perspective, obviously slanted to his opinion of how things have played out. And there's lots of opinions of how things have played out. Who's the bad guy? Who's the good guy? But that's coming up on Agree to Disagree. You can listen to it live. I would give you the time that's going to be, but I'm not even certain yet because I'm coordinating schedules across 3 different time zones to make this happen. But you can definitely check it out after the fact by going to thenewamericanmedia.com, or during Buckeye season you call it thenewamericanmedia.com because of the Ohio State University. Anyway, thenewamericanmedia.com. We will post it after the show has gone live. You can listen to the archive there. We'll tweet it out at American_media_. That's American_media_. And on Facebook, we'll put it there. If you do a search for The New American Media with spaces in between, you can like our page. Or if you're on the bottom right of our homepage, you can just click our Facebook feed right there and like it. And please subscribe, youtube.com/The New American Media. My name's Brian Engelman for the TNAM Radio Network. Special thanks to Rob Trautman. Check out Sports on Tap, and we'll be back in a little bit on Agree to Disagree.
It's the Unhappy Hour.